I think also, though, when I think about like self-reliance, self-trust, I really feel that the root of self-trust is self-respect.
So I just want to take a second and say thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you. Wherever you're listening, please make sure to hit that follow or subscribe button. Obviously, this helps me bring amazing guests onto the podcast, so I appreciate you so much. All right, let's go ahead and get back into it. Brooke, welcome back for the second time.
Thanks, Jen.
What you needed.
Should we tell that story?
Yeah, we should. We should totally tell the story. This is our second time recording because the first time we only recorded half of it. It was literally like, so I ended up finding the audio clip, which was almost 90 minutes. That's how much we can yap. But I'm pretty sure that the first 20 minutes was us just like talking shit. So let's assume it was like a full 60 minutes. And then the video only recorded up until 42 seconds.
42 seconds?
42 minutes.
Oh.
I was so fucking pissed. Oh my God. So anyways, here we are. We're back.
We are back.
Thank
Everything
you for doing
happens
this.
for a reason.
It does.
I feel like something is going to drop in the second round of this recording. We're going to get downloads.
We are.
Of things that people need to hear.
We're
So I'm excited.
Content.
You never know.
Okay, for our listeners listening, please tell us what we are going to learn from you today.
My bread and butter is really just helping people learn how to trust themselves. That's how I describe what I do at this point. I believe that self-trust is a skill that anybody can learn.
Yeah.
And not only is it a skill that anybody can learn, but it is the number one most important skill that you can learn. It is the skill with the highest ROI in terms of peace and confidence and just like living a life that actually lights you up.
Yeah.
And I say that as somebody who very much up until pretty much my like late 20s, I would say, did not trust myself at all. And it really feels like living life in black and white and now color. It is like a totally different way of interacting with the world that has changed everything for me. And so I hope that people walk away from this episode feeling A, empowered to trust their inner knowing, and B, confident that that level of trust in themselves is accessible no matter where they are at in their journey with that as of today.
I love it. Perfect segue then, because what did your early to mid-20s look like when you didn't trust yourself? So like somebody who's listening right now, how can they know, like, actually, I don't actually trust myself? Also, disclaimer, right? Like, I think anybody listening to this in their 20s, like, you are learning to trust yourself at that age.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have it all figured out. I don't even think you have it all figured out in your 30s, to be honest. And like, I've got 3 years left in my 30s, which is freaking wild. But I feel like every day I wake up and I'm like, oh, what do you know? I learned something new today, you know? So I just want to say that because I think there's a lot of pressure of like, you have to have it all figured out. And it's like the biggest bullshit I've ever heard. Like my parents are 60 and they like in their 60s and they can't figure shit out. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think that's the point, right? I think the point is to really learn, as you said, to trust yourself and move. Because
Yeah.
I think we live in a generation that waits for outside validation, outside certainty, and it keeps people in a very stuck place.
Yeah.
And it's hard. It's hard when you're there. And then you have the different effects of like mental health and physical health and whatever comes, you know, whatever life you're living and whatever, you know, stage that your season that you're currently in comes into effect. And it keeps you there for a long time. So tell us what that looks like.
Yeah, like let's start there. So I think some signs that you maybe don't trust yourself or maybe you have some room to grow, which is most of us, by the way. I mean, even for me, like one person that I really admire and respect is Jenna Zoe, who like talks a lot about human design. And one thing that she tends to say, it's like a repetitive refrain of hers that always sticks with me, is like, we can't turn off to life, meaning like just because you've learned something even doesn't mean that it's not like an active practice to continue. So we really can't shut off to it. But yeah, I think some telltale signs that you might have a self-trust problem, which again, most of us do, are so when you think about like decision making, and this was something that I very much did a lot in my 20s, is like, to what extent do you try to outsource your decisions? So I'll give you a couple of examples, is like, do you, when you have a big decision to make, are you asking other people for their opinion? And if their opinion is different than what your gut is saying, do you trust them more or do you trust you more? And I feel like when I lacked trust in my own intuition, I would not only outsource decisions, but I would honestly like feel a secret sense of relief when somebody else would tell me what to do because it was like, oh, I don't have to make the decision.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So it's like feeling so ill-equipped to make your own decisions that you are not only willing, but like gleeful to like let somebody else decide things on your behalf. I think another way that it could look is honestly like lacking direction for your own life. And I think one way that this can manifest in our 20s is like relationally. Like, I don't know about if any other like women or anybody really listening to this resonates with like kind of just orienting towards whoever you're dating. Do you know? I definitely did that in my 20s where it was like whoever I would date, I would kind of like co-opt like what they wanted.
Totally.
Because truthfully, like I didn't really know what I wanted. And again, it sort of felt like this secret relief that I didn't have to choose for myself, like where I wanted to live, what kind of life I wanted to have. It sort of like sometimes seems easier to co-opt like something else until you've actually done the work to know yourself, which obviously leads to a much more fulfilling result. So I think outsourcing opinions is a really big one. I think also you can think about when you make a big decision. Let's say you did listen to your gut, like what usually happens after, because there's a scale and a range, right? It can range from anything from you feel relief and you trust yourself, even if there is temporary pain and discomfort. And the other thing to think about is after you've made a decision, what happens next? So there's a spectrum, right? It could be anything from, I would say if you have like very high self-trust, it's you feel relief and you feel good about the decision, even if there is some pain or some discomfort.
Right.
You know, next level on the scale, let's just say, is you may have a moment of second guessing yourself. You may seek reassurance that you made the right decision once, but then you accept it and you move on.
Right.
There's like another level, which is you seek constant reassurance that you made the right choice. So it's like, do you find yourself asking other people and also ruminating?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like once you've made the decision, do you just like accept that that was the right decision, or do you ruminate over it? And then there's a last version, which is like you immediately regret the decision and try to reverse course. So I'll give you another example from my early 20s. I would do this in low stakes situations all the time. So in my early 20s, I was very fortunate to travel a lot. I worked remotely. I also had periods of time, you know, living overseas. And so I booked a lot of solo travel. Looking back, I don't know how I survived booking so much travel given how indecisive I was, because here's what I would do. I would think about, let's say like I was booking a trip and I was like, okay, I want to go to Japan. You know, I can either spend the whole time in Tokyo or I can spend 3 days in Tokyo and like 4 days somewhere new, right? Or somewhere like in Kyoto or whatever. And I would agonize over which one was the right decision. Okay, this is like hyper optimization, agonize over it. Then let's say I decided I'm going to go to Tokyo, spend the whole time there. It's be more relaxed. The second that I would book that hotel and lock in the plan, I would immediately regret the decision, second guess the decision, start looking at how expensive it would be to cancel the hotel and change the decision.
Wow.
Like crazy stuff, okay? So this is like, that was probably like a baseline 0, like worst level of self-trust. And
we've all been there, by the way.
Exactly, which we've all been there. There's no judgment. It's very normal. I think most people start somewhere around there. Yes. And then maybe like a slightly less anxious version, but like you can kind of climb the ladder until you get to a place. And again, still, nobody's perfect. I'm not going to say that you're never going to feel sad, feel uncomfortable, or even have a moment of seeking reassurance.
Yeah.
You know, but you're going to be so much quicker to trust yourself, and you're going to be thinking about the decision a lot less once you've made it.
Totally, I agree. You know what's funny, when you were talking, what was coming to mind for me was, and I say this a lot for people that have been following me for a long time, you start to make your own decisions when you step out of the matrix. And what I mean is like we were born and raised in a society that has literally made decisions for us, has taught us to follow, and never really has given us the tools to be able to make decisions and our own choices. And stepping out of the matrix is when you finally like remove the curtains and you open it up and you're like, oh, I have choices, I have options. What do I want? Vanilla or chocolate? And then you step into trusting this muscle. But it's something that like it is a muscle that you have to work. That for me, it's very much the muscle of entrepreneurship that has also helped me to continuously grow that like, I am going to make this decision. I am going to go in this direction. I'm going to sell this thing. I'm going to talk to this person and like really trusting that muscle. Yeah.
Ooh, that's good. I feel like I want to talk about this a little bit. So it's like we've talked about how to diagnose, like maybe roughly where you're at on the self-trust spectrum. But I think this question is even more important, which is like, if you realize that you're not in a strong position there, what do you do about it? Like, how do you fix it? I actually have thoughts on this. So I think to an extent, right, it's like trial by fire exposure therapy, forcing yourself to make decisions.
Right.
I think also, though, when I think about like self-reliance, self-trust, I really feel that the root of self-trust is self-respect. So when you think about, I think about this often. I love language because language like gives us so many clues into just like deeper layers of things. So you know the phrase like to tell someone something in confidence?
Yeah.
Okay. So to tell someone something in confidence means that you trust that person not to share it with somebody else, right? So that word confidence actually starts from a position of trust.
Right.
How do you build trust with somebody else? Is that that person does the things that they say they're going to do, right? I trust you because when you say, Brooke, I'm going to, call you at next day, or like, let's, meet here at this time, you follow up on that and you do what you say you were going to do. If we made plans and 3 times in a row you didn't show up, I would lose trust in you.
Totally.
And it's the same thing with ourselves, right? So when we tell ourselves, I'm going to go to the gym in the morning, I'm going to make this decision, I'm going to stand up for myself, I'm going to say what I actually feel. Like when you say something to yourself and then you don't follow up on it, you start to erode your trust in yourself, which ultimately erodes, unfortunately, like your respect in yourself, right? So it kind of all comes down to the same root. And this is why, and I say this often as well, on my page, but also like to people that know me in person, like integrity is my highest value because everything hinges on your ability for your words to match your actions.
Totally.
And most importantly, actually, it goes one step deeper than that. Alignment is when your thoughts match your words and your words match your actions.
Say that again.
Okay, so thoughts match your words, words match your actions. So it starts from, and like, it's so funny, there's so many good examples of this in so many different areas of life, right? When you think something or feel something, what is your ability and willingness to be honest and put words to what you are feeling? So your thoughts matching your words. And then when you put something verbally out there,
the action.
Do you follow through on it? And by the way, that's not to say, like, we're all human, things come up. It's not to say you can never cancel a plan, you can never adjust something. I'm big on that too. Sometimes we get wisdom, we get intuitive pings that take us in a different direction, but you own it, right? When there's a change of plan, you own it. You're accountable to it. So I think there's just this, like, for me, everything ultimately comes down to accountability and integrity. And when you have that, it's like when you trust yourself, respect yourself, that's what real self-love is, right? By the way, it's like
100%.
Self-love is actually like, do I respect who I am as a person and I love who I am? Then it becomes a lot easier to make your own decisions and not rely on external validation. Because at the end of the day, is life, do things feel easier and smoother and better when everybody's cheering us on? For sure. But you no longer require that to know that you're acting in integrity with yourself. And so like you get to a point where being someone that you love and respect is more important to you than being someone that somebody else approves of. And that is when you can like operate from a position of true power, but also your own inner authority, and you can actually like follow your own intuition, your own path of highest alignment, because that's the thing, right? And like one of my favorite essays, which I talk about all the time, is Emerson's Self-Reliance. Like, to be great is to be misunderstood. Anyone who is doing anything interesting is going to be upset some people. Like, not everybody is going to approve of what you're doing. And frankly, like, if everybody does, you're probably doing something wrong. So I think it's a really important mindset, and it ultimately starts with making and keeping promises to yourself. That is like the core building block.
Totally. I agree with you. I mean, you've laid it out so beautifully. And I think that there is a point in your I can speak for myself when I say this, a point in your self-love journey when you get to the point that you no longer need to validate your anything. Like, it is what it is, right? And when you get to that place, it is truly like you in your fullest and most comfortable form.
I think too, so in Buddhism, there's a concept of like the first arrow and the second arrow. Are you familiar with this?
Yes.
Because the one thing I do want to say on that, I love all of that, is like, I want people to also know and understand that. So the concept in Buddhism is like the first arrow is like your gut level default, like emotional trigger reaction to something.
Yep.
And then the second arrow is how you choose to respond to that.
Yep.
And I want people to like know that the first arrow is not something that you can control, and it's not something that even necessarily ever fully goes away, right? So like in this example, like it may be the case, especially with certain people, maybe family members or like people whose opinion you really care about and that feels very heavy to you, that being disapproved of or being misunderstood, it may always sting a little bit, right? Totally. In the immediate term.
Yeah.
But to your point, it's like you get to a level where you sort of can observe everything from a bird's eye view, and you can see the first arrow and you can be like, okay, like I now no longer choose to invest in that story, in, you know,
Yeah.
being understood by people who are frankly like, you know, determined to misunderstand me. Like
Yeah.
there's so much that goes into that. And so I just wanted to say that because I feel like it's not only is it okay, but it's good that you get triggered by things, because that is actually your opportunity to operate, to use your free will to operate from a higher consciousness and choose not to engage or react in the way that maybe you would have reacted in the past in a default way without even having the ability to pause and choose your reaction.
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah.
I absolutely love it. Okay. I want to go back to, so we covered the conversation very much about the version of you that didn't trust herself and all the things that she outsourced and all the things. So now how did we get to where we are today?
Yeah, I want to tell this story in the right way, which might be a slightly roundabout way, but I think all of these things are important. So when I think about like my journey from, let's just say, going from someone who frankly felt completely disconnected from her intuition to like where I'm at now, it actually starts with disordered eating, which may feel unrelated, but like I think a lot of people also struggle with, which is why I want to bring it to this conversation, because there may be lots of people that relate to this.
Yeah.
And the first thing that I want to say is I believe that God gives us certain challenges. They're always for our higher good and for our highest growth.
Amen.
Even when we can't see it in the moment. So I had I would say like a decade-long battle with disordered eating, which, you know, anyone who has struggled with any kind of eating disorder knows, like, it's never really about that. It's a control thing. It's, you know, it's wrapped up into so many different things. My point in sharing that is I had this thing that I was dealing with and shoving under the rug and hiding and pretending that wasn't a thing that was very much connected to my inability to trust myself. Because, by the way, intuition is an embodied feeling. So when you are disconnected from your body, you can't tap into that. And what ended up happening was it was sort of like restrictive eating all through college. After college, I went to Taiwan to teach English for a year. That was like my version of an adult gap year, okay, where I was like, I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to go to law school and be a normal person and get a normal job.
Normal person.
Yes. And
you're always a normal person.
Exactly. Yeah. Like little did I know, but that was the plan. And essentially over that year, for reasons that I can't really explain, but, and this is going to sound like a certain type of way, but I think it's important to be honest about, is that this like decade-long pattern of restrictive eating kind of flipped one day into binge eating. And what that did was it started to make me gain weight. And I share this because, like, again, I think it's important to be honest, because some people may go through this, that like I wasn't motivated to seek help for my eating disorder until it backfired. So that's where it's like when I started to gain weight, it was enough for me to be like, I need to figure this out. Now this is out of control. You know, like it was in control before and now it's out of control, right?
That's why I'm laughing.
It's hilarious. So I start therapy, and thank God for that, okay? Because anyone who has been in therapy knows that you go in for one thing, but it's like a peeling of the onion, and that helped me understand that the disordered eating was never about food. Like, and I mean, everyone has their things, right?
Yep.
Childhood stuff, family stuff, you know, other stuff, like all of these things. So that started my journey of like going inward.
Yeah.
And that's why I actually want to start the story here, because I feel like that's important. Like, I'm a big believer that if you want to change the fruit, you have to examine the root, right? So you can't, if you are struggling with something and you've never addressed frankly, like your inner child work, your childhood, family of origin stuff, like you need to do that because you can't actually meaningfully change patterns. And this is something I didn't really understand until years later of therapy and then also my own self-study. And this is a lot of the stuff that I talk about now on my platform is like just how subconscious and ingrained certain patterns of us are.
Yeah.
And so that's why I wanted to start there. But, you know, just kind of moving along from that is like started therapy. That kind of started my journey with inner work. And then as you know, Jen, I would say like my life has been a series of like slightly bolder and bolder moves. So I will give myself credit. Okay. So I went to Taiwan. That was already like a little bit like different, but it was kind of a condensed like 1 year thing. I knew I was coming back.
Right.
I got back to New York, started working at, you know, a tech startup, ended up dating this person that I had met while I was studying abroad, traveling somewhere, who had, you know, moved to Dubai. And the long story short is that COVID hits and I'm like not wanting to be in New York anymore. So I moved to Dubai and I would say like that was another example of like a self-trust move.
Yeah.
Albeit like maybe not so intense, right? I was moving to be with somebody that I was, you know, in a relationship with, but there were a lot of unknowns at the same time. Like I, you know, moved working remotely for this company that I was working for in New York, ended up getting a different job, finally got on a local visa, ended up getting a 10-year golden visa to stay there, which was amazing.
That is amazing.
And then ended up actually starting my own consulting practice while I was out there. So there were these little like trust moves as like
How long
I
were
was
you out there for?
4 years.
Right.
So over those 4 years, I was kind of like building myself up, ended up, you know, deciding that I wanted to get more involved in the wellness sort of like psychology side of things in some fashion. Didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, but this was sort of the genesis of starting the Well Path actually, like while I was still in Dubai. And the biggest trust fall that sort of I think of as like my genesis story, and this was like a real rebirth, was breaking off my engagement. So me and my partner, you know, ended up getting engaged, and like long story short, it was not the right relationship for either of us for so many reasons. And yet anyone who has ended a long-term relationship or ended an engagement knows, like, it's so funny because looking back now, I'm like, oh, I'm so glad we didn't, you know, we broke it off before getting married. Like before having kids, we hadn't put a deposit down. Like in retrospect, I'm like, okay, it was a big deal. And it also wasn't like life or death.
Right.
But at the time it felt life or death.
Yeah,
and it really felt like, how could I possibly, I'm so far in. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
The sunk cost, and then, you know.
Also, like, how old were you at this point?
Okay, this is important. Thank you for asking that. So I'm 29 at this point, and no, but listen, you have to understand. So in my family of origin,
yes, I totally understand.
All of my siblings are married before 27. Yes. I, by the way, have always like wanted kids. Yeah. I've always wanted biological kids. Yeah. I've always, you know, seen myself getting married, like really want like a true like love in my life. And it's very important for me. So again, now being 31, I look back and I'm like, I was a baby. But at the time, I did not feel that way. I felt really like stressed.
At a time.
Yes, I really felt that. And especially because, you know, I had moved to Dubai for this person. Yeah. I also recognized that ending this relationship was going to have so many downstream consequences for my life. Mm-hmm. It was like the decision of whether to stay or leave in the relationship also was like to stay or leave in Dubai, to stay or leave my job. Like everything was hinging on this decision. Mm. And maybe this is actually helpful because, you know, who knows, like someone could be in a similar situation. What I found was when I was examining this decision as a bundle, which is what I was doing for a very long time, I was in complete paralysis because trying to manage all of the downstream consequences of that decision meant that I was never, ever going to make a move. Yeah. And so I realized that at some point that I had to like separate these things, and I just had to make the one decision
and rip off the Band-Aid
and then deal with everything else. And so, and this is actually a really good sort of like tie back because we were talking about this concept of like building self-trust, building self-respect. So I believe the only reason I was able to like make that decision, by the way, is because for like a year and a half before that, I had been taking all of these micro actions to like build self-respect and self-trust, both from like, honestly, like dialing in on my physical fitness and even from like a career perspective, like launching my podcast, like taking real steps to like think about what I actually wanted and starting to take my life into my own hands and doing a lot of that deep inner work, like all of that prepared me because I think a lot of the times like when we're making any kind of leap of faith, the reality is it's always going to be a little bit scary. And the only way you're going to be able to do that, because a lot of people, it's like, well, the devil I know is better than the devil I don't, because they don't trust themselves enough to be able to figure it out.
Yeah.
But when you are somebody who has now a track record of taking little, medium, big leaps of faith, you know that whatever happens, and this is truly how I feel. And by the way, I think also you relate to this. When you travel a lot, especially when you solo travel a lot, that's an amazing way to build this muscle because
You figure it out.
shit always hits the fan and you always figure it out. So at that point, thank God, I had enough of a track record that I could say to myself, you know what, this is really scary. I don't know exactly what's going to happen, but I know that whatever happens, I will figure it out. And like, I will be okay because I've been okay every other time that something has happened, right? Yeah. So I think that that is kind of the gist of it. And the other thing I want to say on that is that I firmly believe that in the moment, you only ever feel maximum 80% ready. And the other 20% is a leap of faith.
Totally.
And I think it's important to understand that because if you're waiting for the 100%,
You'll never get there.
You'll never get there. And 50 years down the line, you'll look back and wonder why you didn't jump, right? So you have to, I want people to know that you're only going to be 80% of the way there. And then the other thing that I want people to know is that other people can hold your hand while you walk to the metaphorical ledge, but no one can jump with you.
No.
Granted, the people that hold your hand and walk you to the ledge are very important. Yeah. And I had people like that, okay, my sister, who I spoke to and called and who kind of like gave me the push. Because at some point, and this is like, again, me being honest, you need to have people in your life that love you enough to tell you something hard.
Yeah.
And so you need to have people that are going to be like, I know you're scared, but you have to do this anyway. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that can be helpful. But at the end of the day, you're the one who's going to have to jump and you're the one who's going to have to deal with the aftermath. So it's like, accept that there's going to be fear there.
Yes.
And do it anyway.
Yeah.
And, you know, like, there's no real, like, guarantees in life. That's the hard thing. But you have to get comfortable. And that's where I think about, like, when you think about the 20% leap of faith, I think there are multiple different answers to that of, like, how do you get there? For me, God is a non-negotiable. Like, I wouldn't have been able to jump without God. Like, that for me is, like, faith is the foundation.
Yeah.
I think also this foundation of self-trust and trusting that you have your own back and can actually deal with whatever consequences is another component of that.
So the intuition muscle, my intuition, is never loud. It's always this like subtle, like deep down. And I get, as you said, like you have to get very quiet, which by the way, I really do admire because as someone who has ADHD, has struggled with so much of that her whole life, like getting quiet for me is so much work. And it's something that I have to do in order to listen to my intuition. So in the times that I've gotten quiet and the times that I've grounded myself, the voice like had been there from day one. I was just like, that's not it. That's not it. That's not it. And it's never loud. It's never loud. It's always this like silent, like go left.
Yeah.
And then it just stops. And then you're like, wait, what? Go left. You know what I mean? It's not like go left, go left, go left. And I think to me, that is a big barometer of whether or not it's my intuition or my ego. Because when it's so loud and then you're not able to silence yourself or calm yourself or like be in silence and ask the question, to me personally, it's a barometer that it's most likely a decision being made from ego versus the actual intuition part of me that's like, oh no, she's supposed to go right.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense.
It does. I think there's a couple different interesting distinctions here. There's intuition versus ego, which I want to talk about too. And then there's also intuition versus like fear, anxiety, which I think also trips people up and is slightly different. I think when it comes to ego, for me, what usually happens is like when it's my ego, my logical mind is like taking over.
Yes.
And so like your ego mind is going to use logic to tell you what to do. Totally. Okay? Your intuition is not something that can be explained by logic. And in fact, oftentimes it will defy logic. So I think that's really helpful. I think when it comes to, because I hear this a lot from people too, is like, well, how do I know if it's my intuition or anxiety? And I struggled with this a lot when it came to like my relationship, right? It was like, I would constantly second guess myself of like, is this really like my intuition telling me, or like, am I being anxious? Am I the problem? Am I this? Am I that? And I think to your point, I think urgency is a great one to look out for. Your intuition is not urgent. No. It's not urgent. It's inconvenient a lot of the time. And I think another thing that gave me a lot of peace when I realized, and I use this a lot too, is when we're confused, it usually means that our intuition has already spoken, but there's a part of us that isn't okay with it yet. And so it's like, that's where it's like your intuition has spoken, but there's a part of your ego, most likely, that isn't okay with what it has said.
Yeah.
And that's okay, by the way. Like, I think that we need to have grace for the fact that oftentimes, more often than not, there will be a delay in like hearing the message and then our ability to act.
Right.
That's okay. And sometimes it can even be helpful because, for example, when it comes to like ending a long-term relationship, that's not something you want to do on impulse.
Right.
That's not something you want to hear and then immediately act on. I think it is important sometimes to let things marinate and sit so you actually feel confident. Like, I gave everything that I possibly could. I tried every avenue. I tried to fix it this way. I tried to fix it that way. I tried to fix it that way. Like, I think there's a lot of power in giving yourself the ability to know that you did everything you could to create a different outcome.
Totally.
But to your point, oftentimes you'll look back and like that intuition was talking years ago. Yeah. So I think that it is usually very subtle. Yeah. It is usually very calm, even if inconvenient. But it's not going to feel like this, okay, you must act now and you're freaking out.
Right. Well, Brooke, this has been amazing.
Yeah.
I'm so happy that you came back. We were able to do this a second time.
Yes.
And it worked. Please tell everybody where we can find you. And then I'm going to do the rapid fire questions before we end. But
yeah,
tell everybody where they can find you.
Amazing. So I am most chatty on Instagram at the.well.path. My name is Brooke Robbins. So you can just Google me. I'm on, all the things as well. But I would say Instagram is probably the best place to connect. And then my podcast is called The Well Path Podcast. And then we are also on Substack, which is also called The Well Path. So I'm sure you'll add them to the show notes, but that's the best place to get in touch with me.
Love it. Okay. Where was your last trip?
Oh, Cape Cod.
Okay. What was your favorite memory?
Ooh, easy. Jumping off the bridge. So, jumping off the bridge and then floating down the creek. Yeah.
That was fun.
Yeah. This is like, the Cape is like my really, like what I think of most as home because I've been going there every summer. My grandma's from there. Like my mom's family is from there generations.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
The last and final question.
Yes.
Obviously, this podcast is called What She Needed. So if there was one thing that you could have told little Brookie, what does she need to hear that maybe somebody who is currently in that place could possibly hear? Yeah. Needs to hear right now.
It's okay to be misunderstood. I think that's really powerful. And to understand that life is not about what you can prove to other people. It's what you know to be true in your own heart. And at the end of the day, like no one stands in the gap for you between you and your creator. So it's like everything is about acting in integrity with who you want to be. And as long as you're doing that, some people are going to get it, some people are not going to get it, but it doesn't really matter. Yeah. And you are loved and lovable, exactly as you are.
I love it. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks, Jen.